Right, I'm Andrew Gibbons. This is Jacky Leonard. Stay with us. That's the introductions over. Today, we've got a really big issue to discuss. It's all about becoming, but explain a bit, Jacky. I've done enough talking for starters.
Well, I guess it's all about continue. I hate to use this initial CPD, continual professional development. People are running for the hills already, aren't they? So it's the concept of when
Concept. You're getting too academic on me.
When do you arrive? If we are continuing our professional development, when do you arrive?
You don't.
Yeah, thanks. We agree on that. So that's I came across, I know you came across the word becoming years and years ago and just was slow to pick it up, bless you. But I'm equally as slow with it because I think the first sort of time I read was on Michelle Obama's book, and I thought, well, that's a really interesting title to have, becoming. And I know we've had conversations since, and we've sort of linked it to this journey, this learning journey I believe we should be on and should be continuing. And I know that you share my thoughts that isn't ending. If we stop it, well, what is there? What is there after?
Well, yeah, exactly. You're right. I read, and I did carefully, and it had a big impact on me, Warren Bennis's book, 1992, On Becoming a Leader. The word just flowed over me. But Warren Bennis was onto something then, because what he was basically saying is, if you're becoming a leader, that's all you ever are. You become next day better than the previous day. You'll become next week better than you are now. It's a journey without arrival. And that's what interests us, because we're going beyond any context and saying, hey, whatever your professional activity, whatever you're trying to get better at, you're always becoming. You never arrive. You never become.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I mean, and you only got to look back, look back on what you did last year, 10 years ago, last week even, yeah. When I write blogs or put things to paper or start thinking about different things, I realize that I'm not thinking in the same way. And actually, when I read previous things that I've written, I think, wow, okay, that's interesting of its time. Now I have more resources, or I think about things in a slightly different way. But that's only because I'm receptive to that.
Yeah, and it's conscious. You're doing something deliberate. I came across, I read widely, as you know, because I read early in the morning, same time I get for it. And one of the terms I came across recently was being a deliberate practitioner. And that really got hold of me. If you're a deliberate practitioner, it means you become more consciously aware of this. You're not leaving it to intuition or inference. You're actually saying, what am I trying to get better at? How am I trying to become better at what I'm doing? How can I fuel my becoming journey? Because I guess a lot of people see professional development, whatever their professional field, as being the attainment of certification, accreditation. They hang it on the wall and say, whoa, look at that, job done. No, that's a departure point, not an arrival point. And I think that's so fundamental to this. If you've got something that says you are good at something, you have achieved a standard, well done, genuinely well done. Don't let it stop there. And I think that is the mindset. It's about becoming, is about a never-ending, genuine journey of lifelong learning. It annoys me sometimes because I'm a lifelong learner. Well, what do you do that differentiates you from people who aren't? Oh, well, I go on courses. That's not what we're talking about. We are both tuned into what becoming means. Don't make us special people, but we see value in that mindset of being hungry and maintaining an appetite, however good you are, to get better.
Yeah, and that's the crux of it, isn't it, Andrew, is that realizing that you don't, I mean, the older I get, the more I realize that I know nothing. So, yeah, so, and I start to accept, I think, when you're younger, but you're right about those qualifications. I think people go and collect badges often, and that doesn't mean you know any more. It doesn't mean you're any better.
Sure.
That's just part of the learning process. And arguably, maybe we learn more by applying or by experiencing. I mean, I'm a real advocate for pragmatic learning, and maybe that's not done me so well in the past, because I know we've talked about this, that sometimes I seek learning, but maybe I'm missing things because I do it for a real purpose, and maybe then blinkered to things that perhaps I don't need to know?
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know you were going to say that. And we don't rehearse this, by the way, particularly significantly, in order for it to be spontaneous. And that is interesting because I said deliberate. Now, deliberate can mean going down a channel. It can say, I am a deliberate practitioner. I'm becoming better at what I do. And this is the path I'm going to follow today, this week, next year, all my life, whatever timescale. And as you say, that can blind you to, hey, hello, over here, outside of your preferred channel is me. Can you see me? Well, so it's about balance, isn't it? It's about saying, here's my channel, but hey, let's stay aware of and tuned in to what else might be outside of that.
Yeah, and that I think can be a challenge, because you can get so fixated on your that you forget that actually there may be little detours. Do you
know a question? I've been out of organization working for myself for 31 years. So I'm naive of organizational practice, much as I think I know what goes on. I'm not in it. I wonder if, and I phrase it in those terms, I wonder if organizationally in this performance managed, talent managed, world that organizations profess to be in, I wonder if organizations are guilty of that, of saying, right, this is your performance review or your whatever, or once every year time I can find for you, whatever it is. And some organizations do it better, so I'm not being completely facetious. I wonder if the temptation is to focus on too specific, too focused, and to steer people towards organizationally beneficial things that might blind people and feel they're not being measured against or rewarded on things outside of that track.
Yeah, and maybe that's where somebody's individual passion or learning different things comes in.
Yeah.
If you haven't got that, if you're not directed,
they can be difficult to manage though, because if we're taking this organizationally, and that's just one context for this. I'm an independent practitioner, so to a large degree are you, although you have affiliations. I think that is a temptation, isn't it? And I think this whole business of becoming, therefore, is nuanced, one of my favorite words. It's not one-dimensional. It has influences. Some of those influences can be, if you like, beneficial and helpful. Others can actually be distracting and unhelpful. Learn this, but I want to learn this. No, learn this is what we need you to.
But I think that one of the tricks maybe is on this journey, whichever journey perhaps you're either set on or you put yourself on, is to have these little checks on direction and on purpose. Because if we're saying there is no end goal, that it's a continual journey, you still need milestones along that route, don't you? You still need checkpoints to say, okay, I'm on track, whatever that track may be at the time.
Yeah, and this isn't as straightforward as we might make it out to be. You're right. You need a structure, but not too much structure. You need a support, but maybe some of that support might take you away from what you really need to know. Everything that's helpful could have an unhelpful dimension.
Isn't that just life? Yeah.
Well, I think it is. And one model I came across quite recently, and I know we don't like linear models, and this appears linear. And this model was, and because I'm getting interested in professional development models at the moment, it came to me out of kind of nowhere, but I'm getting interested in this whole idea of how do professionals pursue this becoming journey. And a model I quite like was the Dreyfus and Dreyfus model, which is novice, advanced beginner, competent, proficient, expert. Now, I know we have a problem with the apparent arrival point being expert. If you interpret that as expert that you will never be, but are becoming bit by bit. I'll say it again, novice, advanced beginner, I like those terms, competent, proficient, and expert. That made me reflect on my own practice. And I straight away ruled out expert because I'm nowhere near there. I've only been doing this 41 years, so I'm a long way away from that. And I've said before in the blog, experience is not a number, it's what you do within that number. So I think I'm beyond novice. I'm talking about me for a minute. Hey, this could go on a long time. I know I'm beyond advanced beginner. I'm competent contextually, sometimes more than others. And I think I'm moving towards, but not yet, proficient. And as you're right, that's about humility. It's about saying, hey, I've got 41 years on the clock, but I'm not as good as a lot of people I'd like to be as good as. And I think it is wrapped up with humility, deliberate practice. There's a lot of stuff in this.
I suppose it also depends on what intervention or discipline you're talking about within
Yeah.
everything that we do.
Sure.
Because I guess even if you're using that model, I maybe would count myself more competent in some things than other things that I deliver.
Yeah.
Or
I get that.
And again, you sort of, I don't know about you, Andrew, but if I'm asked to deliver something, I will then go and research.
Sure.
I think I know a bit.
Absolutely. Because it is contextual, isn't it, Jackie? This isn't generic. You're not always as proficient as you would like to be in every area. You're more proficient in some activities than others for all sorts of reasons. We haven't got time to go into them now. So it's a very dynamic thing. I like the idea of the progression. I like the idea of a progressive model.
Yeah, well, do you know, I think part of it is it's a bit like Homer Simpson. I get something new come in my head, something old's got to drop out the back. So there's only, there's only a certain amount that I could focus on at any one time. But I don't like linear models. No. What I'd be interested in unpicking, and this perhaps is for the next session, Andrew, is what happens at each of those. Yeah. Well, what do people do to move within those stages, and also to move on to the next? How do you know? How do you know when you've arrived? And
how accurate are you at judging that? Because are you the best judge?
Yeah. And when you get to expert, or you are,
which you don't ever,
but you can say, I'm becoming.
Yes.
Then if we get to that stage where we think I am becoming an expert, how do we know? How do we know? What do we do next? What is there? Because I mean, although there's a lot of organizations that talk about CPD, we know, don't we, that there are very few that actually do.
Absolutely.
I'm
looking at my other monitor, which has got a stop clock on it. We're getting near to the point where we finish this overview, because that's what it is. It's about saying, hey, becoming is an important word. It's a great word to be aware of as a deliberate practitioner. Progression is not linear, it's dynamic, and frankly, it can be regressive. I mean, if I look at this model in front of me, you could be a competent, proficient person, and then if you give up on your learning and you cease to have the appetite to become better, you'll regress because time's moved on and you haven't. Right. This is all really good stuff. And I think let's round it off at 12 minutes something, because we know 50 minutes is a long time for people. And this is very much an overview. If there's one thing for you to pick out of what we've said that you really want to reinforce, what would it be?
That becoming is not a linear process. That there is, I've not seen a model yet out there that works with that. So that's why I don't dislike the model that you've just. I think it's well worth exploring. Those are the things I'd like to explore next with it, because I think as long as we see learning as a linear process, more difficult for people to get the growth mindset.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely, as you'd expect me to. And I suppose my point, to answer my own question, is accepting entirely what you're saying about there being a logical route and progression. It doesn't have to be linear, and it can be dynamic, it can be iterative, you can go back as well as forward. I would emphasize certification, accreditation is a departure point, not an arrival point, because if the mindset is I've arrived, it's very hard to get out of. Right. We could talk further. We will when we pick out specifics around this. Thanks as ever.
Cheers. Bye.